Alright, welcome. This is Devin from Deadly Art Gaming. For those coming for the first time, welcome. For those coming back, welcome back. Today we are going to be starting a series of 5 where I will be breaking down each of the classes, the different specs of the classes, and then at the end I'm going to try to have some links in the description of some of the popular builds. I'm reaching out to those other content creators, so it's not just my stuff. So that way y'all can have a little bit of variety of things to choose from and gear towards. So without further ado, let's go ahead and, well, first off, before we get into that, if you do like the content, please smash that like button. And also, if you want to keep up to date with the series and my other guides and live streams and all that fun stuff, smash that subscribe button. And also I do have a link down below to the Discord channel that I have. You can feel free to join us and chit chat with us, and once multiplayer comes out I'll be more than happy to play with everybody, help y'all get geared out and all that fun stuff. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. And we'll, like I said, we're going to go over the class, how to play it, kind of different aspects of it, and all that fun stuff. So first off, we are going to go into the essentially the class. You're going to start out as a Sentinel. You're going to start out with a handful of skills. As you progress up, you'll come out with Rebuke, Shield Rush, Shield Throw, and then Smite. Now, once you progress through here, you put your points in here as you so see fit. And then once you hit around 25, level 25, not 25 here, your actual level 25, right around in there you'll be doing your class quest, where then you come in and pick your um, actual class that you want to end the game with. Um, so before we break down into this, we're going to go over stats, the resist, kind of bonuses and stuff like that, and then we'll break down the passive tree and then the skills. So essentially, like most tanks, you would want to go into strength, because most of the skills, like you see, well, not there. You'll see a lot of them have the strength modifier on them. Like this one is physical, melee, channel, movement, and then strength. So essentially, if you press Alt over a skill, you'll see what happens if you add strength, which this one gives 4% increased damage, which is kind of across the board. This one gets it off attunement, not strength. But most of the stuff for Sentinel is like other melee classes where it's based off of strength. So over here you'll see if you put points into strength, you'll get additional armor, and then of course it improves the skills that's associated with strength for you and your companion. So there is a minion to this class. Haven't been able to work out a good use for them, but there is one. Um, Then you got Dexterity, which adds dodge and any skill that associates the dodge. Intel grants ward retention and skills associated. Attunement will grant you mana and then the skills associated with it. And then Vitality will get you 10 health and 2% health regen. So essentially, you're going to be starting out with a set amount of mana health, which progressively goes up as you level and per your gear that you put on as well. Your health regeneration and your base mana is 10 regeneration, and then your movement speed will be based on if you have like gear or skills or anything like that that give you bonus to them. So these are your resistances, where you'll have resistance to said um, damage type, so fire, fire, lightning, lightning, cold, cold, and so on and so forth. Now you do have your block chance, which is your chance to block. Now there are some skills that have the ability to add on block chance without a shield. So there are a few things on there, so you don't have to have a shield to block. There is some that can still do it. You have your armor, which mitigates helps mitigate damage as well. Um, it reduces damage taken from all hits, but not damage over time. And then 25% more effective when protecting health below a threshold. This threshold is equal to 30 plus 3x area level. So essentially helps with mitigating damage and stuff like that. Then you got your stun avoidance, which has the calculations if you're really into the whole calculations thing. Kind of breaks it down to where you can, if you get hit with a stun, you have a lesser chance of being stunned. And now block effectiveness is essentially how much damage the block when you block the damage that is mitigated um, when you're hit. So then you have your dodge, which is your chance to dodge a hit, and then your ward retention. So how much ward you can hold at a given time. Now it's not like a cap thing where it's essentially you're gonna deteriorate the ward if you go over it until it hits that point. So the higher you get, the more you can hold, type deal. So these are all the breakdowns of your damage types of crit chance, bow crit chance, even though we're not using a bow, stuff along those natures. You got your defense breakdowns, your minion stat breakdowns, which I'm not using minion, but I seem to have quite a bit. I don't know why I have so much there. I'm not sure where that's coming from, but oh well. Your bleeds, this is going to be, the other stats is going to be where it's going to be covering all your ailments like bleed, poison, ignite, shock, stuff like that. So your chances, the damage type, so this will be the damage, and then you will have your chance above it. So essentially, like bleed, if I had a chance to bleed, when it hits them, it'd do 110 damage, as long as they're not resistant to like poison or ignite. If I did an ignite on them, whatever, fire damage. This will also show how many potion slots you have, your health gained on potion use, um, your increased chance to find potion, mana efficiency for skills, and then your chance to chill, slow, shock, uh, healing effectiveness, and then your cooldown recovery. So that pretty much covers the stats of the character. Now, for the most part, on the Sentinel, there's essentially three ways to build them. You can go two-handed, dual wield, or um, sword and board, sword and shield. So essentially, if you want to go dual wield, you'll need to come up to here and grab this, and that will allow you to have two one-handed weapons, not one-handed weapons, but two one-handed weapons, one sword in your offhand, and then whatever on the other hand, as far as like mace, whatever the case may be. So you have to have that if you want to dual wield two weapons. Now, two-hander you can still equip without that skill or without that node. But essentially, you'll come up here, and once you hit to about 20, or once you hit about 25, you'll be able to take your class, and then you can start putting your points into whichever one. So, like my character here is a Forge Guard. Now, just because you pick Forge Guard does not mean that's the only skill, um, the only passive tree that you can put points in beside from Sentinel. You can pick and choose, in which a lot of the builds for Sentinel is going to be mixed. There's a lot of nodes throughout both that are kind of interchangeable to where they work well with others. So like if you're doing like a max block, which this character is a block character, you would have these, and then I came over here to the Paladin to get more block chance, more efficiency, effectiveness, and a few other things just because of the build that I was working on. Um, so it doesn't have to be what you kind of want, because like I even had a Forge Guard that ran with Void Knight skills. I essentially ran with enough points to get me to here to get all 3 of these skills, and then I used this to use it as to get the tankiness of the Forge Guard, uh, even though I was using the Void Knight skills. So you can kind of pick and choose, balance how you kind of plan on going, and all that stuff. So, but like I said, you got to kind of pick if you want to be just crit build, you would kind of want to go dual wield, um, or two-hander to get the really high crits. You can still do it on sword board if you. It's just the damage won't be as high. Um, Now, a couple tricks that I like that I learned from the Forge Guard is I like doing like a shield build and having Ring of Shields, this node up here, because it gives you a chance of casting it for you to where you don't have to have it on here. That way you can use Lunge to get around, and you don't have to be spec'd in it. So like this character has, I don't even remember what I was doing with this character. It's not even, I was playing around with the build, but essentially I didn't, the when I used the Forge Guard that used the Void Knight skills, I had that on there and I could pull an entire map to the end, and the more they hit me, the more defenses I had, and also procced more rings of shield, which increased my defense even more. Because I mean, at times I could have 80 plus shields running around me to where it was hard for them to touch me at all. So it has its perks to it, as long as you can get the defenses, get the offense all kind of mixed together to get the best output for your play style. Um, so, like I said, now kind of a few things that people kind of work towards in their builds is this node is a very popular node, because when you use Reeve, Vengeance, or Smite, and now the fine print on this, if you don't read the entirety of the thing, you regain health and mana when you directly use, not when you proc it. So there is builds like this one where I have Smite spec in here, but I don't cast it at all. It procs off the skills that I use. So I'm not gonna get health or mana back, but the damage it does is pretty good. I'm not sure about this character, but with some of the builds that do proc smite, now if you cast it yourself, you get the health. But most people kind of use it for the Vengeance or Reeve, um, just because they're fast attack speed, so it's a way to get health and mana back really fast. Is what that's kind of geared towards. Most of the proccing builds for the smite stuff is done using this. So essentially, when you um, hit an enemy, you have a chance to throw an axe, in which the throwing axe is what procs the chance of casting smite through the tree. Um, so that's essentially where that kind of comes from. Um, so like a Void Knight is going to be all about damage. Um, like I said, this is going to be kind of like a mixture of damage, defenses, and all that stuff. Then you'll pick your class. So Void Knight is going to be primarily damage dealing. It's not on the tanky side. It's more for dishing out the damage. It has a lot of leech to it, so and this is one of the bigger nodes also, which can be used in multiple ways. Because it's not all about the void damage. So, like if you're a paladin or a forge guard and you're going to be doing something that's going to be hitting really fast, really hard, even this node could be halfway decent viability wise because of the 12% melee damage leech as health. Then not only that is this node right here, just to get to it, is very beneficial, because essentially you get 50% more damage if you kill an enemy. So I mean, you're gonna be killing stuff, so it's an instant 50% uh, damage increase, and then 12% melee damage leech, which is very important. So especially with the Void Knight spec, you're leeching not only the melee damage but the void damage. So if you're doing something that's doing both, like for instance, let's see, where is it? There it is. Like Warpath, Void Knight, you would be coming up here to get the Time Rot, Void damage, um, casting the shifts and everything like that. Th- that would be proccing a bunch of both melee damage and void damage. So it's kind of double dipping and makes the leech a lot better because as far as like I said, Void Knight is more for the damage, not for the defense. So you're gonna need as much um, leech as you can get from it. So essentially now these each class has their own buffs to them for going into that spec. So if you choose Void Knight, essentially you're going to get 75% increased melee void damage. Your melee attacks or like throw attacks and void spells have 10% chance to be repeated by an echo zero point 0.5 seconds later, excluding movement and anomaly. And then it gives you a racing strike for choosing the spec. So essentially, this gives you the big bonus to the Void Knight kind of tree. So then you kind of go through, kind of build it out how you see fit to whatever build you're going to be going. Warpath, Shield Throw, Smite, um, Shield Bash, whatever you decide, you can make it into whatever, uh, align with whichever. Now, some kind of seem to kind of get an edge over others as far as using Void Knight, Forge Guard, Paladin. So it's going to be kind of making sure you kind of do your homework as far as making sure you get the min max out of it because, like I said, once you pick a master, you have to you have to restart a new character to change it to Paladin just because you find that you're going to be going fire, but this is more defensive. This is going to be more offense on the fire. So, so now as far as Forge Guard is going to be kind of where the minions come into play. They have the ring shield, so this is where you would spec into ring shield to make it bigger and better. But also you have manifest armor, where essentially it spawns an arm. What you call it? It manifests uh, not an NPC, but non-player character, I guess, still NPC. Runs around and fights alongside you, which you could spec it to where it kind of gets the benefits of your gear, which makes it stronger. Um, and then you have the Smelter's Wrath, which gives you the cone attack that deals fire damage. Um, if you hold it for longer, it increases the range and power. And then after that, you have Force Strike, a melee attack that hits all enemies in the area in front of you. 20% chance on hit to manifest a sword that lasts for 10 seconds. So essentially, you using it, you have a chance of spawning swords that will float around and help you fight. Um, and then as far as Void Knight, you have the Volatile Reversal, which essentially is kind of like a backwards movements uh, spell, if you will. It kind of takes you back 2 seconds prior, which you can kind of spec it to where um, like it gives you your health and mana back, but you can kind of change it to where it doesn't give you health, but it has a shorter cooldown or mana shorter cooldown. So you can kind of pick and choose and kind of change it to your will. Um, but that one, a lot of builds kind of come with, but it could be very tedious to learn. So it's definitely something you'll have to kind of get used to. The Abyssal Echoes is essentially like an AoE around you that kind of spreads and damage over time, kills enemies. And then the orb creates an orb that at the target location that casts a void rift when something dies nearby, dealing void damage to enemies around them. Um, so essentially, once they die, it spreads, deals more damage. Um, Anomaly is a pretty well known one as well. A combo skill that first sends enemies forward in time for 5 seconds. Reactivating skills bring those enemies back to your timeline early. So there's a lot of builds that actually use that skill. Um, Ravaging Stance, I haven't used that one. I haven't really seen any builds with it. Um, Power with Ravaging Stance. While in Ravaging Stance, you lose 5% of your current health every second, but emit a aura that afflicts nearby enemies with ravaging ailment that deals void damage over time and does not stack. You can only have one stack active at once, or one stance, sorry. And then, like I said, you have the Erasing Strike for picking the class, which is a melee attack that hits all enemies in a large area in front of you. Enemies killed by the hit are erased from existence, replaced by a Void Rift. But it has a huge mana cost. So I already went over those, but on the Paladin side, you'll have the Healing Hand, which is essentially a heal. It also has some buffs if you spec into it, which there is no spec tree to it just yet. Um, Sigil of Hope is a spell buff that kind of circles around you. Buffs you, gives you damage, defenses, healing, effectiveness, and all kinds of different really useful buffs from that. You also have the Judgment, which is a high mana cost as well. This one is a powerful melee attack that leaves an area consecrated ground for 4 seconds, which gives you buff. Allies in the consecrated ground are healed for 50 health each second. Um, and then the enemies that go in there get hit with a fire damage over time. Holy Aura is also a buff slash defenses. It's really nice to have. It gives you you and allies 30% increased damage and 30% elemental resist. So if you plan on working with a group, like making a character, like I plan on having a paladin set up for multiplayer where I'll play with friends and fans and all that stuff. Um, I'll be running with that set up to where people that play with me can change their gear to where they don't have to worry about their elemental resist. I can put it on here to where they can focus more on putting more on damage and they don't have to worry about that 30% of elemental resist, say, on a couple pieces of gear to where they can put more damage. So that's where once multiplayer comes in, these builds are going to start changing to where we can implement the group aspect of the builds. Um, let's see here. Now, as far as the Forge Guard, there's the bonuses to it. Like I said, this one gives void damage increase. The Forge Guard gets 30% physical and fire resistance. Uh, and then 3% increased armor for each hit you have taken in the last 10 seconds. So essentially, the more you get hit, the more armor you're going to get, which more damage mitigation. That's kind of one of the things that kind of came into the play of um, my Forge Guard that ran as a VK. Uh, he was either blocking or mitigating the damage to where trying to kill him was impossible. Um, And then last but not least, we have the Paladin, which this one, you deal increased fire damage and physical damage equal to your percent health remaining. Uh, so if you're at full health, you're going to get a big increase there. You get a 100% increase, but the lower your health goes. But with this build or this class, it's going to be all about like having the defenses like blocking, heal effectiveness, healing abilities from blocking, and all kinds of stuff like this. Um, when you block, you cast Holy Symbol, healing yourself. So if you crank that up to all the way up, that's only got 1 point in it. It heals me for 15. So if um, that almost 100 health, I mean like 90 health just by having 6 points in there. So that's a big chunk of health being healed every time you block. But now, thing is, not every time you have hawk, because this one it does have a 3 second cooldown. So, but still, 100 tick heal every 3 seconds is pretty nice. Whenever if you're starting to get hit, then the group aspect would be chicken to this to where the instead of it just healing you, it would heal your allies as well. So, and this one will give you that holy aura if you spec into it. So, like I said, if you master this, you will only get the spec skill, which for Forge Guard is the Forge Strike. So you can't get this skill, and you can't get that one. You actually have to master it. So that's where it comes into play of picking your class correctly, or making sure you kind of do your homework, or just make 2 characters and test which one that you like the most, because that's how I'm kind of making some of my builds of Whirlwind, or not Whirlwind, but Warpath, stuff like that. I have one of each of the class, trying to see which one I can get the most, because of this one and that one I was trying to do fire, but I wanted to make sure I had the defense and all that stuff, so I was playing both sides of the fence, because I liked a lot of the bonuses up here for this, and having that, having the Ring of Shield autocast for me, but I had to master this to get that. Uh, but then that also meant that I didn't get the Holy Aura, which is a pretty good buff. So it's kind of like I said, it's one of those things that you'll have to pick and choose and go through. Uh, Now, as far as gear, um, there are a few things that you can use. Like I said, you can have your one-handed, two-handed, or um, a one-handed and a sword on the instead of the shield. You kind of pick and choose there. You'll have your idols, which can boost up your single durations, your smite. These is what you would use to cast the smite for you. So every time you throw that axe from hitting people, you hit, chance throwing the axe throws, and you have a chance to smite, which then the smite does its damage, works its magic. Um, There are a few things as far as resist that you can do on Sentinel that you cannot do on any other character. Is the Sentinel has the ability of adding, and I could have sworn I had it on here, but it has the ability of kind of like this helmet has that poison damage taken as physical, necro damage taken as fire, to where it makes to where you can pretty much mitigate majority of all the damage from a specific field, or like poison and necro, and make them go to physical or fire. And that way, instead of having to put your resist over here, you can just skip them completely. I mean, you can get like 10, 15, or whatever just happens to be on them, and just put it all over here, max these three and max this one, because that's the way I ran for a while there. I had Orion's Eye, um, which I don't know where that is, but essentially that switches damage over to fire and gives you fire resistance. There it is. So 100% avoid damage taken as fire. So that just that ammo alone, that one part, nullifies this whole uh, resistance. You don't have to put any into void. So, like for instance, this piece right here, I could take that void resistance off and put something else there. Maybe I don't know, like health regen or just something other than void. And then if I have on my chest and helm to where it switches necro and poison over, then I don't have to worry about these three all together and just do those, and then I'd have a little bit more free play with it. But now, as far as the let's see here, they also the only thing about that is that you're gonna kind of lose out on a bit of damage because of there's bonuses like this, like wielding a sword, blunt weapons. So here's the necrotic damage taken as physical, poison damage taken as physical, and then you're going to have a lot of physical resist just from and armor just from the build. So you'll be able to negate all that, a lot of that physical uh, hits. But there's other things on here like fire damage, ignite, duration, stuff like that. Stuff that kind of can only be done on the helm and the chest, and that those two slots. That if you put them for your resist, you won't have. So, like I said, just like any other game of picking and choosing min max for your play style. Um, Now, the base skills is Vengeance, which is essentially this skill right here. Here, let me go over here. Oops. So, essentially, he's just not hitting it all. There you go. So, that gives my health and mana back. So, for instance, I can do all that, and that's see 4 hits on full mana again. Uh, this is where, like I said, it's going to give you a lot of your. It'll get your damage taken reduction. Just the skill alone gives you damage taken reduction, and get like a bunch of attack speed for it. So depending on how you plan on setting up your character, you got a hammer throw, which is essentially your Thor's ability. You can throw it to where it spins around you. You can throw it straight. There's kind of different ways you can kind of set that up. Uh, you got your Reeve, which essentially is this one. So it's kind of like a 3-hit combo thing. You have this stance, which gives you void. Well, while in ephemeral, if I cannot say, I can never say that word. This stance, you deal 70% increased physical and void damage, but you lose 7% of your current health when you use a skill or lose 37% more mana from mana drain effects. So essentially, every time you cast something while that's on, you lose health. Then you got your Rebuke, which is a spell in a sense. That would be this. Where are you? There you are. And of course, it's got its cooldown. So, shield throw is essentially just like the label is called. Shield throw, you throw a shield, it can ricochet. So, depending on how you set it up, you can have it to where it ricochets off mobs, where it hit more mobs. Here's the Rebuke. It kind of just you can hold it and channel it to where it does more damage to the enemies around you, stuff like that. Warpath is your typical whirlwind. Lunge is essentially your movement skill. Now you do have to have an NPC to target to actually use it, which I kind of don't like. Go. You got your shield bash, which essentially you can bash uh, enemies, stun them, do a bunch of damage. A lot of people set them up kind of like a shotgun build where you can hit it and just do a ton of damage. So you can see it kind of reminds me of a shotgun. You have Juggernaut Stance, which essentially gives you 50% more armor and take 15% less damage, but you have 15 less crit chance, movement speed, attack speed, and cast speed. So you're just slower, but you can take a beating. Shield Rush is essentially for rushing forward. You can use it as a movement spell, but you don't need a enemy to point at for this. Now you can go to where it actually goes further, or you can actually go for a good distance before letting it go, type deal. Um, Other than that, I think that is pretty much it. Like I said, I am going to have some links down below here once I get them compiled of some of the popular builds. That way you can kind of look through them from me and other content creators to kind of pick and choose what build you would like to try. Um, Other than that, I mean, it's a basic tank. You get in there, do your thing, either soak up the damage so everybody else can kill it once multiplayer comes out, or just lay things to waste with whatever build you choose. It's a very fun class. It can take a beating, but it can also dish a good amount of damage out as well. Um, so other than that, I think that is pretty much it. If y'all have any questions or anything, please leave a comment down below. Also, if you did like the content, please smash the like button. Definitely appreciate it. And if you want to keep up to date with my guides, my build guides, my reviews, live streams, all that fun stuff, and my series that I've been doing, smash that subscribe button. It helps out the channel, and I definitely appreciate it. Also, I have the Discord link down below, so don't hesitate to come join us and chit chat with everybody. And also, my name is Devin from Deadly Art Gaming, and I hope you all have a great one.